Hey, if you're seeing this part of the show, you are one of the replay viewers, so thank you for taking the time and watching this. We have just hit live. This is going to be a live show with Joel. He's here. We're ready to go. We're excited. Hopefully we worked out our technical kinks before we got on here, so just, guys, in the chat, let me know if you can hear me and maybe Joel say something, I don't know, rant on something. We'll see.
Welcome, everyone. I'm getting quite a bit of feedback.
Yeah, I am too. So that's good that we're on here a little early. Replay viewers, hang with us. We'll do a 3-minute sound check, try to figure out this feedback, and we'll get going. So everybody's bearing with us. Now, I didn't hear any feedback that time. Joel, can you say something again?
Yeah.
Okay.
A, B, 1, 2, 3. I'm still getting a lot of feedback.
Okay. They can hear us is the good news, but there is an echo.
Okay.
Oh, I wonder if he has to hit that button on his end, Rebecca.
Let me look.
Yes, guys. So we have got an echo on Joel. We didn't hear that in the testing before we got on here, but we're gonna see if we can't figure it out and get right onto the show. So just bear with us for a minute or two here. So Joel, I'm just manning the chat. We got a lot of people on here. We got 205 people on already.
Oh, that's cool.
So I'll just start welcoming people while Rebecca works on this. So we've got Anita, Stone Bull, Charles, Patrice. Where is everybody from? And I can start shouting out places that you're from. I know that we've had people interested all over the world. I know that some people have even been willing to pay the international shipping. We've had Russia. We've had South Africa. We've had people all over the place. People are excited. Some people are getting their books. Some people are seeing the tracking, and they're very excited. We got Florida. We got Virginia, Ohio, Iceland, California. Boy, it's really thrown through. New York.
I may have figured it out. No,
okay.
See if it works.
All right, Joel.
I think it works now.
See if you can say Michigan, Ohio, Charlotte.
Michigan, Ohio, and Charlotte. Yeah, that's good.
Okay. You were good. You were good. So let's just jump. We're going to jump right in because we're all farmers here. We all got to get up in the morning, I'm sure. So we're gonna keep this to 8 o'clock. And Joe, you got 67 questions, but I narrowed it down, kind of, to the cream of the crop. It's not that they were bad questions. It's just that these are maybe more of the popular questions. I don't think we're going to stump you tonight, but there's some really good questions here. Let's just jump right in. This is from an 11-year-old. My 11-year-old son, Matthew, would like to know how old you were when you started to farm, and why did you want to farm?
Well, I was 10 years old when I got my first chickens. I got 50 Aztec heavy breed assorted special from Sears and Roebuck catalog in that would have been 1967, and we raised them in a box in the cellar. Why did I want to? I just, I can't go back and recreate that, but in general, I mean, I took an interest in the farm at a really, obviously, a very early age, and wanted to raise something. My grandfather was a charter subscriber to Rhodes Organic Gardening and Farming magazine in 1949, and my great uncle had a great big chicken farm in Indiana, and he was kind of my favorite great uncle, and so I just a lot of farm family memories, and let's have an enterprise.
Okay, cool. I have 5 acres or less. Where should I start? Then there's a lot of this. Like, what do I do with small acreage? Is that worth it? At what point? Where's the critical mass there?
Right.
I don't have a.
I can't hear.
Okay.
Packet. And let me say right here, Justin, off the top, Lord willing, this winter this winter I plan to write another book, and the title is going to be the Homestead Livestock Handbook, and it'll be all about a homestead scale, livestock on a homestead scale. And so anyway, I'm just letting people know that that's in the works. So 5 acres, where do you start? The first thing you want to start with, I think, is feeding yourself. What do you eat? What do you like to eat? If you don't like to eat pork, don't raise pigs. If you don't like, if you're off dairy for some dietary reason, don't even think about getting a milk cow. But if you like carrots, grow carrots. If you like green beans, grow green beans. Start with make a list of what you especially enjoy eating. Look at what you can grow there in your area, and then start there. Feed yourself first. That's always what I say. Then the second thing is, as you start your homestead, the first thing in the permaculture kind of scenario is access. How are you going to get to places? How are you going to get around? That's why they have these 7 zones. You put your herb garden right outside the back door, and then stuff that you don't have to go to every day, it gets farther and farther out in your zones. But beyond, and I appreciate the zone concept, but also, practically you need a lane, you need an access road, trail, lane, something. You'd be able to get around. And so think about where that should go. Think about terrain, think about, grade, mud puddles, that sort of thing. Get your access in, and then that becomes your artery for both walking, machinery, animals, wheelbarrows. Access is critical, and then you're going to fence that down both sides, fence down your access, your lane, and then you're going to run a water line. You're going to run a water line down one side of your lane, and that's kind of where you start. And beyond, I don't know. I mean, I could talk for 2 hours on this, but I think if you start feeding yourself first, and then figure out how you're going to get around, get from point A to point B on your place, and get your control, that's your fencing, and get your water, then everything else kind of grows from there.
Yeah. All right. So we do have some feedback saying you're quiet, and somebody did think that maybe if I turned my mic off when you talked. I'm not sure if that'll work, but let me turn my mic off right here, and you'll say let me give you the next question. I'll turn my mic off and see if that helps.
Maybe if he turns his on, I don't know.
I just turned mine up. Does that seem to be a little better?
You sound better to me, actually.
Okay.
I could hear you well because
mine.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I turned mine up.
Okay. Hey, you know what we can do before we? Joel, we'll do this. This is not a question somebody presented, but we'll just use it to just practice audio and get some. Okay, people are saying it's better, but how does it feel to sell? Like, I think I've sold over 5,000 copies, and you've sold over 1,000. I mean, how does that feel? I mean, and by the way of people are actually going to build your stuff all over America and the world. How's that feel?
Yeah. Oh man, it's well, it's very humbling, but it's just incredible. The outpouring. Yeah, we've sold a couple thousand now, and so we're in a back order situation now already. Look, in my wildest dreams, I was hoping to sell 1,000 by the end of the year, just to kind of get some of my capital costs back, and it's just been overwhelming, just overwhelming. So when we put that price on the book, we were, is anybody going to buy? Who buys a book for like $80-$90? But anybody that's gotten the book, we've already gotten feedback from people who've gotten it and said, man, this is worth twice that much. And the nice thing about the book is, if you don't want to read it, you can use it for weightlifting because it weighs 5 pounds.
I know, that's true. There's a lot of uses in that big old book. Okay, that's good. They said that you sounded better, and I did turn my mic off some during that, and it did seem to pick up even more when I did that. So I'll try to practice that, even though people won't hear me laughing with you and all that. But we'll take turns talking. We'll get through this. Okay, so if you were looking to buy property, how large would you assume necessary to sustain a family and farm business? So somebody quit their job. How many acres are they going to have?
All right. Well, it depends on what you're going to do. Singing Frogs Farm in Petaluma, California, is probably, one of the best examples of a high, a high spin farm. Spin, SPIN. It's an acronym for whatever it is, sustainable. I don't know, whatever, intensive. Developed in Canada, and they actually bought land, cash flowed it, ran a salary. Um, on $30,000 an acre land for like 5 acres. But remember, they're in Northern California. They can grow 12 crops. They can grow 12 crops per square foot per year. They don't plant any seeds. They start all the seedlings, so the plants are already half grown before they plant them in the garden. So that increases their turnover rate. So people like Jean-Martin Fortier, Elliot Coleman, um, these guys with produce, it's pretty amazing. The problem with produce, I mean, there are two problems with produce. One is that in the American grocery budget, 50% is animal protein, 25% is fresh fruit and produce, and 25% is dry goods. That's the breakdown of the American grocery dollar. So produce, while it's wonderful and fairly unregulated, by the way, which is a positive thing, the negative is that it's only 25% of the consumer dollar. So the animal part, eggs, dairy, meat, poultry, is 50%. So you can chase more dollars in livestock from a marketing standpoint than you can in produce. The point is that produce is a much quicker saturated market than livestock. So so you got to decide what, if you're a plant person, an animal person, those kinds of things. So if we say livestock, in general, with our program, we generate one full-time salary from about every 20 acres. So 20 acres is enough for a full-time salary with our livestock. Now that being said, if you added a commercial kitchen, so your livestock was value added all the way to a heat and eat meal, for example, then that acreage could drop down to maybe 5 or 6. So it all depends on how you want to set up your business as to how much acreage you need.
Thank you for that. That's great. And so people know, somebody's asking in the chat, can we ask questions? I am asking Joel questions from those who got the pro tier. So I've sifted through those questions. I'm asking some of the more popular questions. If we get through these, we'll look at the chat and try to answer some of the things. Rebecca's also here, going to try to do what she can in the chat. So next up, what are some best ways to approach someone to lease or buy their farm property? So you're an advocate for you're not necessarily owning the farm. So then how do you go about a neighbor? I mean, how do you approach that? How do you know how much to pay them? That kind of thing.
Well, the going rates for leases are fairly easy to find. I mean, you can go down to your local extension office and get your local printout on the going rates for cropland, whole farms, good pasture, bad pasture, that sort of thing. You can kind of get those rates. I think the most critical factor in leasing is to have a prototype that people can see. If you're going to go in there and do something a little bit unusual, a little bit unconventional, that's very scary to a landowner. Even if they love you, even if they think something different is cool, they want to see it. because land is pretty sacred. When you own land, it's pretty sacred thing, and you're pretty careful about what happens on it. And um, so having some sort of a prototype is really important, and that prototype can be pretty small. Here, we have 2 acres here. Here's what we're doing. This is what yours will look like. I know it's 100 acres, but we're doing it on 2. This can be scaled to 100 acres. Have something for them to see and to be able to visualize. The next thing is to then work in the community. I mean, be friendly. Look, if all you're doing is walking around the neighborhood telling people not to apply chemicals, you're not going to get a farm lease. So you've got to be diplomatic, be kind, be gracious. Ask a farmer if you can help him for a day. Drive fence posts, herd cattle, castrate calves, whatever it is. Get involved in the community. And many, if not most, leases are done on the quiet. So just ask around. What land is available or not. Look for abandoned land. You can drive the countryside and look at fields that appear abandoned. Well, find out who owns it. Go to them. Make them an offer. You'd be surprised how many people are looking for someone to just do something with their property. And go on, put yourself on Craigslist, that sort of thing. But the main thing I'll say is you've got to have a prototype so people can visualize and see what you're going to do with their property. That's key. And if Alan Nation, my mentor, used to always say, if you know how to make land beautiful, you'll never want for land.
It's kind of that concept of the permaculture concept. Start right outside your door and develop those areas first before you expand. Because it's like if you're not farming 1 acre, you're not gonna farm 5, and you're especially not gonna farm 20.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. In my book, You Can Farm, I have a whole chapter on what are you doing now, because so many people. Well, if I just had 100 acres, if I just had 50 acres, hey, if you've got a yard, you can have chickens and garden and a couple fruit trees and some grapevines, and the point is fill up what you have first, and when you fill up what you have, then that next step will become apparent.
That makes perfect sense. It is hard to do sometimes. Looking back, what were your 2 biggest costly mistakes, and what would you do different?
2 biggest costly mistakes. Okay, probably the biggest costly mistake was building a great big portable sheep corral. I had this idea of this great big portable sheep corral that I would just pull along and move sheep. And my idea was to build it out of Schedule 80 PVC, real thick, 1/2-inch thick walled PVC. I built this thing. It was like 25 feet by 50 feet. My idea, this is big enough for like 100 sheep, and I could move it a couple times a day, and it would skid. The PVC would be slick, and it would just skid real easy across the field. Got that thing put together, and the morning I got it done, it was kind of chilly, and I hooked it up with the tractor and pulled it 2 feet, and it cracked. That was it. And the whole thing went in the landfill. So that was a $3,000 mistake. So that was one. Probably the I'm trying to think. Probably the next costly mistake was using peat moss as a bedding in the brooder. So we were short of chips, we were short of shavings, and so we decided to go down to Lowe's and get some bales of peat moss. and we put peat moss in there, and it really worked great for 3 or 4 days. But as we actually were using it with turkeys, little turkey poults, but as the turkeys grew and got more active, it got more and more dusty in there, and it got so dusty that one morning when the brooder turned on, the whole thing exploded and burned up, and we lost 600 turkeys and 2 brooders. And you should have seen the propane tank when it finally went and blew up. That was exciting to watch the propane tank blow up. So don't use peat moss in your brooder.
Everybody's getting a kick out of that story. I don't think you can see the chat, but everybody's enjoying that. They're saying "ouch." They're saying they're just getting a real good kick out of it. So, well, I can't resist this. This is not on the questions, but you're sitting in front of your library. We can see your library behind you. What is the most read book behind you?
Probably the book I refer to the most
Yeah.
is Rodale's complete book of composting. It came out in about 1960 or something like that. It's old. I could. It's right here. I don't know if you can see it. It was.
Oh wow.
See how thick it is. Look how thick it is. It's what is it? It's 1,000 pages. It's a really, really thick book, but that thing, I refer to it. It has all of your carbon, nitrogen values of different compost stocks, soil, this is just this book changed when I finally read this. I was, I don't know, maybe 23, 24 when I finally read it all the way through, and I would say that's when I became a leader in this movement. From that book right there.
And what if you could give only? This might be the same answer, but to everybody listening in the audience, if we could only have one more book besides Polyface Designs that's behind there, or one book off your shelf, what is it?
Probably. Well, if not that one, if not the complete book of composting by Rodale, I would say probably The Unsettling of America by Wendell Berry.
And why that one?
The Unsettling of, oh boy, I tell you, it's hard. You start thinking, you hit these questions and then you start thinking, oh, I should have said.
Yeah.
The other one would be An Agricultural Testament by Sir Albert Howard. That would be a must-have, and
writing those down.
Yeah, those are just, and of course, the Bill Mollison's original permaculture a designer's manual.
Mm-hmm.
That one is just, you can never wear that out. You could just go back to it and back to it and back to it, and it's just full of stuff. So. Yeah, those are good. The old basics. Plowman's Folly by Ed Faulkner. What a gem. That's just so powerful. And those 1950s books. anything, Out of the Earth, Malabar Farm by Louis Bromfield. Those are just fantastic. Anyway, you asked for one. I'm giving you way more than one, but I am. I'm a total.
You're a book nerd.
What was the book that he
nerd.
I think the first one that he said, was it Rodale's?
Oh yeah, it was Rodale.
The complete book of composting. I don't think it's available anymore.
I wrote them all.
Okay.
They've updated it, and it's not quite as thick, and it's glossier and prettier. But this thing has. If you want to know how much like nitrogen and potassium and phosphorus is in, the charts, there are pages and pages of charts, so you can balance out, raw ingredients for composting and things like that. This, for example, that's what I use to determine how much bedding to put down for the cows in the wintertime in the deep bedding program. So you can look at it and see it'll break out the different NPK for chicken manure, like broiler manure, turkey manure, cow manure, pig manure, horse manure. All of them have different NPK ratios, and that affects. And then you have your carbon sources that also have different relations of carbon nitrogen. So you can actually do your arithmetic and create a formula of so many pounds of this, so many pounds of this to get 30 to 1 ratio. It's quite. I mean, I can't say enough good about it. It's just a fantastic resource.
So somebody said it is on Amazon. The original. You want to guess how much it's selling for, Joel? $847.
Are you kidding me?
You got something right there.
You have a treasure.
I do have a treasure. 840. Well, I was gonna say it's worth $100. But wow, 840. I don't know if it's worth $847.
I think you're gonna get the new version for like 15. I think I have that one. It's not as cool as that old one.
I've seen it. No, it doesn't have as much encyclopedic charts and information in it.
Nope. Okay, what's the most of? Okay, let's do this. I feel like you advocating for people on smaller scale. You're just getting started. Cornish cross meat chickens are a great way to start. Let's talk about marketing for a second. So, and I think the way you might market a chicken might be the same as others, but maybe not. You could speak to other animals, but how would you market and earn your first $100? Let's just bring it down to that. Like, let's get our first $100. How do we get the word out? Market.
All right. I love that question. So my suggestion is to raise 100 of them, and you're gonna keep 50 for yourself. Anybody can eat 50 chickens. I mean, just a couple can eat a chicken a week.
Yeah.
All right. So keep 50 for yourself, and take the other 50, or you might have 40.
Yeah.
A few of them will die. A few of them will die. All right. Anyway, you take the rest of them, divide them in half. If you say you got 40, and make a hit list. Make a hit list of people that you think be customers. And I do this exercise all the time in my conference speaking and presentations, and I'm always amazed at how difficult it is for people to articulate the potential customers. I mean, why should that be so difficult? I just want people that think like I do. Well, I'm not going to find them at the Sheetz gas station. I'm not going to find them at the Kroger meat counter. Okay? Think about people who are thinking alternatively, unconventionally. So the place to start is people always say, school teachers, doctors, they don't think alternatively. What you're looking for are all the wellness quacks, acupuncturists, chiropractors, naturopaths, iridologists, herbalists. Okay, anyone who's in the alternative wellness community, that's our tribe. And yes, sometimes the environmental community, the environmentalists will also work in this as well. But identify those 20 of those people, and take 2 chickens apiece to those 20 people as a gift. Follow up with them, and you'll get 50 of them as customers.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you start.
That's good. A lot of questions about climate extreme. People are concerned, maybe I can't do this in Maine. Maybe I can't do this in Florida. Can you speak to what are the climate extremes that would just be too much for your methods? Or what would you tweak if you were warmer like in Florida or colder in Maine?
Right. So one of our apprentices was from outside the capital city of Hermosillo in Mexico, and he routinely dealt with temperatures that were 110 to 120 degrees. That's pretty hot. And so what he did, he built the same kind of shelters that we build, but he he put a little 1-inch spacer on the top and tightly stretched a sheet of plastic to create a 1-inch stale air space on the top of the shelter, and that was enough insulation to keep the chickens cool. He had no problem in 110 degrees. So there are. I mean, we certainly get 100 degrees here. Of course, the beauty of his place is he doesn't have any humidity. He's in a desert. Here, when we get 98 degrees, we're like 85% humidity, and so it feels a lot hotter. But the main thing is that in the summer, we take that one end panel off the broiler shelter, so it makes it like a breezeway. Remember, we're using aluminum, not steel, and the convection, the heat convection properties of aluminum are completely different than steel. And in the book, actually, Chris, the brains of the book, Chris actually describes and talks about the metallurgic qualities that are different between steel and aluminum. Aluminum is a little more expensive, but it has totally different thermal dynamics. Now, if you're in the north, if you're way up in Maine or in Saskatchewan or Ontario, then you're very possibly going to want to be able to button it down a little bit tighter, maybe in the spring. We, just to push the season one year, we started a set of chickens outside on pasture in February. We got 6 inches of snow, and they were on pasture in February in snow. And what we did, we just took some plastic with some clothespins, and we just kind of made that front end like a cloche, like a garden cloche. And those chickens inside, they were as warm as could be because we battened the whole thing down. Now, does that take a little more effort? Yeah, it does take a little more effort, but we were pushing the season, and we just wanted to push the season and see what we could do. So all of these, so every area, hot and cold, you simply adapt. You either take a little bit of the covering off if it's real hot, and if you're in Houston, Texas, I would recommend, if you're in Houston, Texas, don't raise them in June, July, and August. We don't raise them in the winter. So in Houston, Texas, I raise them September through May and take June, July, August off. And there's nothing wrong with being seasonal. We're only 6 months on, 6 months off. So if you can go almost anywhere in the U.S., I'll just say anywhere in the U.S., and do a 6-month program.
That's good. That's a good word. This one is actually for both of us, so I'll let you go first. And so Joel and Justin, what are 3 most important qualities that farmers need to succeed? So what are qualities of a farm? What are the qualities of a farmer for success?
Okay.
If you need to think about it, I can go at it a little bit. It's no fair because I've seen these questions 2.5 hours ago.
All right. Well, I'll let you go first while I cogitate on this just a little bit.
Okay, so I'll speak to it more from a homesteader's perspective, and Joel, I imagine, can speak to it more from a market farmer's perspective. So, and a lot of these will probably overlap and oversee, but one thing that has helped Rebecca and I succeed, and looking back, maybe we wouldn't have succeeded, is, Rebecca, you might want to put it on me, make sure it can see us both.
Yes,
okay.
they can see you both.
One thing I've found is, we were terribly lonely. Homesteading, farming, it can be awful lonely, particularly in the beginning. Besides being inept, but there's, not knowing stuff, but you could just pull up, you can ask Mr. Google Pants anything nowadays. So you can learn all kinds of things. It's at our fingertips. So ineptness is gone. Like we can learn. But it was awful lonely. And in the early days, it was just us. Our kids were small. It was downright miserable sometimes. And I don't know if we would have made it had we have not found community. So I think community is important, and I think one way people can find it, and at first it's superficial, but it's online, and it's by creating content. So when people ask me, I'm so lonely, how do I create community? I'll say, start creating content. Joel has written books, and his word has gotten out there. So in the end, what happens? When I put out videos, Joel put out books, it attracts people to us. And we then get friends, we then get customers, we then get all associates, business partners, all kinds of different things from it. And now our cup runneth over with community. We had somebody working for us, helping us with some meals after the Great America Farm Tour, and she said, "You guys are the most socialized homebodies I know." Because we don't go anywhere, but people come to us all the time. So community and creating community, not just saying, "Oh, I hope it comes to me," but creating it. And then the other thing I would say is to be consistent. And that's been one of our keys to success. Animals need to be fed 7 days a week. We'll do chores all 7 days, but one day we'll take a rest. But we still have to do chores. But on those other days, it's the 1% rule. You might see that Joel's offline. I don't know if you can fix that while I'm talking. Oh, there he's back.
He's back.
So I call it the 1%. Well, I've heard it. The 1% rule. If you change just 1% something every day, well, you've doubled. You've 100% changed in just like 72 days because it compounds. So not being overwhelmed, just looking at little things and just being consistent and just trying to get a little better every day, you'll be surprised how far you get. I mean, from the time we came back, you want to say, go ahead.
You keep going. I'll say
Go
something
ahead.
when you're done.
Yay! if you look at what happened to us for the Great American Farm Tour, we came back with nothing. We came back and there were 3 chickens on the ground. The gardens were fallow. There was no animals on there. But just every day we just pursued. And now we have 10 freezers and fridges full, and it's only 3 years ago. And it seems like that's a lot, but it's not when every day we were doing something. I like to call it smoothify. Every day we were smoothifying something, So we were just trying to make it easier, a little bit better. And so community, 1% change every day. What would you say?
Well, I was going to say on the community aspect, I don't know, was it 10, 12 years ago? We saw a neighbor that we drove by their farm every day. Well, not every day, but every time we went to town. And she had Premier One fencing. We didn't know who was a she. We didn't know who it was. And so we said, we should stop.
Yeah.
And just see who they are.
If you see somebody with Premier One, you should stop.
They're doing something different. We have Premier One fencing. They have it. Maybe we would get along. And ended up being a she. And she was she still is a good farm friend. And she's 3 miles down the road. And
we stopped one day.
We stopped one day, and she was out. And, you have to be a little careful, with this. Don't
all homesteaders are on guard when a stranger come up in there.
But just say, hey, I'm your neighbor, and, what are you doing? Because, I do this too, and I want to know you, and it broke the ice really quick. And she's a good friend. She borrowed incubators from me this year. We went in a co-op and bought maple syrup. She had a mineral one year that I needed. She had some probiotics once when we needed it for one of our sheep. So it's great. You can find community that way too, but be careful because homesteaders do carry guns too. So
I think
you don't want to get shot.
I would say the third thing would be to think long term. It was the year we got back from the Great American Farm Tour. It rained 80 inches that year. That was 2018. I'm sure it rained a lot on you, Joel. It rained 80 inches that year. It rained 19 inches in 1 week. It was just miserable. And a friend was here. He was filming. He's a fellow YouTuber, Pete Canaris. And it was just miserable. And I was looking pretty miserable, I bet. And he said, "Why do you do this?" And I had to say, good question. And I had to think about it. And I finally thought, I really had to think, why am I doing this? And I finally realized, I'm doing this I'm out here today in this rain for my grandchildren. Because I was out there, because of what I did that day, moving the sea monsters to new grass, the Cornish cross to new area, moving the cows, I forget what else I had that day. I did something that day that made the land a better place. and that was 2 years ago. That land is now better now because of what I did on that rainy day. But thinking ahead to my grandchildren helps. I like to think I'm a good dad, but I already know I'm going to be a real good granddad. So just thinking long term and really realizing why you do this. So Joel, it's up to you, buddy.
All right, so I've got three now. My first one is perseverance. Don't quit. Don't give up. I always tell people, look, I'm not all that smart. I'm not that much better than anybody else. I was just too stubborn to quit. Because what happens is, if you know the innovation cycle, you start here and then you go down into the slough of despond, and then you come up the other side, and you can't shortcut that. Uh, you can't Google experience, and you only get experience by refusing to quit. And so whether you succeed or fail or whatever you do, staying with it, staying in the game, inherently is going to make you uh, more experienced in playing the game, and that's really critical. So perseverance. I see so many people get in, they spend about 3 years, they hit that burnout stage, and then they quit. Right when, if they had stayed in another year or two, they'd have had a breakthrough. They would have found their magic product or their sweet spot of, here's what I really like to grow and what I'm really good at, that sort of thing. So perseverance. Number two is observation. You've got to be able to observe, and this includes, by the way, um, an insatiable appetite for eclectic learning and mentoring. You see that bookshelf behind me. I haven't read every one of those books, but I'll tell you what, I read a lot of them, and I've every time I run into somebody who's doing interesting stuff, I I try to squeeze them for information and have them mentor me. So observation, just see what other people are doing, look at what you're doing, and think of it in terms of things you've read about, things you've seen, and wrestle with the whole observation of what you're seeing. And finally, number three would be vision. Vision. Um, this is similar to Justin's think long term, but you know you're right. When you get 19 inches of rain in a week, or when you're out sleeping with the chickens because the rats got in and hauled off 50 of them 2 nights ago, and you're sleeping with them to keep the rats away, or you sleep with the chickens in the field to keep the foxes away because the fox keeps coming and you can't seem to trap him or catch him. Um, or you're out at 2 o'clock in the morning with your beloved and an infant child fording a flood with bales of hay to scatter in so the chickens don't drown in a wet field. Um, it's important to remember what your sacred mission is. And if you can't articulate what your sacred mission is, you will always give up, because there's no amount of money and no amount of whatever production or anything that will carry you through the tough times. What carries you through is have a very clearly understanding of your vision and your sacred mission, and that will carry you through those tough times.
That's good. That's good life advice as well. Any special advice for someone older than 50, just getting started? Anything special to think about?
Yeah, find a young partner.
Okay. Speak more to that. Well, speak how, because what you do is I've been to your place. For those who haven't been there, when you go to Joel's place, you're all eating together in the evening in the summer. I don't think you do it in the winter, and you're surrounded by young people. It's there. It's a community there, and it's a real there's something that feels just right about it. So, speak to a 50-year-old just getting into this. How do they find somebody younger?
Yeah, well, you got to realize that there are cycles of life, and there are times of life where you can leverage things you can't leverage otherwise. For example, when you're 50 or over, what you have is experience. You have experience, and you have relationships. hopefully you've paid your bills, so you have a track record, and you have people who can trust you, and you have relationships. You have business relationships. You have community, social relationships, and all those can be leveraged. Those are all big aspects of success. And again, I'm sorry, I'm not speaking so much as a just do-it-yourself homesteader. I'm speaking more as a I'm gonna start making a living with this farm, with this little homestead. I'm start making a living. Um, and so at 50, you have some really great assets that you don't have at 20, when nobody trusts you. Nobody trusts you, and you just don't have that big a network of solid people in your court. And so to appreciate that everyone comes to this with a cycle. What you do have when you're 20 is you have physical energy. When you're able to jump on, when you're able to leverage, I think it's just important to understand that historically, tribes accumulated wealth by matriarchs and patriarchs leveraging their experience on young energy. That was the generational successional map. The old geezer, old grandpa. Well, I remember when we had that blizzard in '47, and the sheep all went to that cove up there, and they know where stuff like that is. And so I think that actually putting attention on finding intergenerational partnerships, you almost can't imagine the value of it. But the problem is that 50-year-olds who come to homesteading are running away from the rat race, and they don't want anybody around them. Homesteaders tend to be kind of hermits, hermit curmudgeons, and so all I can say is that if you want a second pair of hands when you're 70, you've got to start thinking about that when you're 50. You can't wait until you can't do anymore. Say, oh, okay, now I'd like a young partner. As Stephen Covey says in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, you have to start with the end in view. And when Teresa and I got married, we said, well, what's our vision here? I remember very, very well just telling her in a conversation, my vision is I want to be a grandpa and have the grandchildren only fighting over who gets to spend the day with grandpa. That was my vision. And so if that's where you're headed, well, then that makes you invest differently, buy differently, think differently, because you're thinking in that kind of arrangement as opposed to just, well, I'm going to satisfy me and do what I want, and that's it. You're thinking more broadly than that. What is beautiful? What's attractive? What attracts young people to me? Am I an old coot, or do I enjoy giving young people authority and autonomy and affirmation and praise, or am I a constant just complainer and it's never good enough and those kinds of things? So in order to have a young partner, you have to be likable, and you have to have a likable mission to attract them. But young people are very attracted to noble, sacred causes. They're very attracted to noble, sacred causes, and we just have to be on point to articulate what our noble, sacred cause is, so that we can attract partners.
It seems like you've been able to do that. I mean, you're on that. How old are you, Joe?
63.
And are your grandkids fighting about coming over and seeing you?
Yeah.
Okay, so
it's pretty fun.
It's actually happened. Your son there works full time, and
right.
So you encourage that. So for the younger people here, speak to the 40-year-old or 30 to 40-year-olds, and how they then cultivate their own children and other young people at that age, because it seems like it needs to start the earlier the better.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it does. And my book, Family Friendly Farming, has 10 chapters of it are uh, how to work with your kids so they'll want to work with you. 10 commandments for working with your kids so they'll want to work with you. And there's no reason to go into all those 10 things right now, but uh, just a couple of high points. One is when you're working together, uh, or you want something done, never describe it as a time oriented thing. Describe it as task oriented. So you never say you never say weed the green beans for 30 minutes. You go out and you put a little pink survey ribbon and say, weed these green beans. When you get to the pink ribbon, we'll have an ice cream cone, or we'll read a Dr. Seuss story, or or you'll get a quarter, or whatever it is. But the point is, you give task oriented, because time oriented simply teaches dawdling. It doesn't teach completion. If you want to teach completion, performance completion, what you want is task oriented stuff. Secondly, turn your tasks into competitions and games. Okay, so you know, children love to be with adults, believe it or not, if we don't drive them away. And so instead of saying go out and pick the green beans, let's go pick the green beans together. You take your ribbon, tie one ribbon on the row where you want them to pick two. You tie the ribbon on the road and say, now we're going to race and see who can get to their ribbon first. And don't throw it. Don't let them win all the time. Now you got to let them win sometimes, but make make it authentic, make it real. And kids love competition. So if you turn that into a game, it completely changes the thing, because now it's a race. And kids are drawn to that. Another big deal that we're keen on here is child entrepreneurism. We are very strong believers in children having their own businesses, and we think there's a kind of a secret or a sweet spot, I should say, a sweet spot between 8 and about 10 years old. Before they're 8, they often don't appreciate money, and they profit and loss and things like that. Balance sheets a little bit tough for a 7-year-old to comprehend. Once they're 8, though, they get that. But once they're over 10 or 11 years old, then they become very ishy-gishy, peer dependent, blah, whatever. And so we think there's a sweet spot between about 8 and 10 or 11 in which a child still has that wonderful, transparent, open personality of a child, but yet enough mental acumen to be able to develop a skill. And so for me, it was my chickens. I started when I was 10 years old, and that was my spending money throughout high school and a nest egg for college. Our own kids. Daniel started with his rabbits when he was 8. Rachel started with her pound cake baking business when she was about 7 or 8. And both of the kids had $20,000 in the bank when they were 20, and they never got an allowance. They did it from their own businesses, their own entrepreneurship. And I don't believe in allowances. Nobody should get paid for breathing. And our grandkids, our granddaughter Lauren has she does specialty chickens and has her business selling pullets and Aracanas and stuff like that. Andrew has a flock of sheep, and Travis has a flock of ducks and sells duck eggs. So they all have their entrepreneurial businesses too. I don't know if they'll, I have no idea if they'll stay with farming, but just that entrepreneurial business of having something to understand the value of money, and all the things that Justin mentioned about community consistency and thinking long term and taking care of business. Those are really important things. And so these are all kind of patterns and models that you can develop as a family to create a conducive working environment. I just can't help but say one more thing about that. One is, and that is that we think that there's a big difference between chores that have to be done just because we're human, and actual work that accrues to the whatever, to the credit, to the viability of the family. For example, I'll bet nobody at your house gets paid to clean the toilets.
Right.
But if nobody cleaned the toilets, it'd be a pretty stinky house. And so, I think, and I'm saying this because we see this. This is a real issue with our stewards and our apprentices who come to us, our young people. We almost have to go back to this idea to realize there are things you do in life because you're part of the human family. You don't get paid for every single thing that you do. Nobody does. And so you shouldn't get paid for making your bed. You don't get paid for putting your dirty clothes in the dirty clothes bag. You don't get paid for washing the dishes. However, if there are things like churning the butter or making cheese or gathering the eggs, those kind of things can all be turned into compensation packages for your kids. Turn them over, turn those enterprises over to the kids, and instead of saying you have to go gather eggs, say, here, these are your chickens, and we'll pay you, $2 a dozen for the eggs you bring in. Well, suddenly they're going to be going out sitting with the chickens, waiting for them to lay, so they can bring an egg in, and get another dollar. And so that difference between just obligatory stuff because we're human, and the other kind of work around adding value to the family. We like that distinction, which is why we don't give an allowance. We only want compensation to be given when you're actually doing something that adds compensation value to the family.
That's good. That's actually so good. This morning we were out planting garlic and we were tending to some of our other garden beds, and we have 6-year-olds to 13-year-olds, and it was cold cranking to get them out there, and it is that way sometimes. It wasn't bad weather. It was great, and it was a cold crank. I think I like that, and for those that watch the show, I'm gonna do this tomorrow, because tomorrow we got to go shape beds, garden beds, and I want everybody to be involved. If folks watch the show, they know I like the family to be involved. I like that ribbon idea. I'm gonna put that ribbon up. We're gonna think of something fun we can all do when we get to grab that ribbon. You think they'd be into that?
I think they would.
I think they would be, and that's like something like that's a reward for everyone, and it's immediate, and I like that. It's physical. It's not even like we get done, let's go do this. It's like we get done, grab that, and then we go. I think that'll be neat. We'll see how that turns out. So we're going to really shift gear here. We're kind of all over the place. I hope you don't mind. What vitamin, we're going real shift gear here. What vitamin, mineral additives do you use every day for your livestock, and how do you deliver them effectively? Do you do healthcare treatments for your animals? What's going on there?
Yeah, so of course the pigs and the chickens get a total mixed ration, and we use Furtrell premixes. So I don't want to leave anybody. I don't want to talk down to anybody. A premix is simply a mixture of vitamins and minerals that you add to a larger mix of feed. So the Furtrell, we just love Furtrell. They've been instrumental in our success for sure. Located in Bainbridge, Pennsylvania, and they have premixes for different kinds of feeds, and we use theirs for all of our omnivores, because they're getting a ration, including turkeys. For the cows and the sheep, they're not eating grain. They're not getting a ration. So for those, they have a separate mineral box, and our mineral ration for the herbivores is three things, and it's 1/3 of each, 1/3 by volume, not weight, 1/3 by volume. So we use Thorvin kelp, which is from Iceland. It's geothermally dried. It's the highest quality kelp there is. Also the most expensive, unfortunately. But anyway, the kelp, and 1/3 Redmond salt, mined out in whatever it is, Utah somewhere, and then 1/3 Fur Trail Poultry NutriBalancer. Now that'll throw people because, well, what are you putting a poultry NutriBalancer in the cow? Well, it actually has a lot of calcium in it. That poultry NutriBalancer has a lot of calcium in it. Chickens eat a lot of calcium, and interestingly, calcium is the single most important mineral for making tender meat, because calcium is the basis of the enzyme calpains, and the calpain enzyme is the one that at death, at mortality, at room temperature, it relaxes the connective tissues in the muscles at ambient temperature. But if the animal's deficient in calcium, there's not enough active calpains to release that connective tissue. Sometimes tough meat is simply because there's not enough calpains. And the year we began using the NutriBalancer, we got a lot of feedback from customers of how much better the beef was, and so we use it pretty religiously. And that's the three things: the Thorvin kelp, the Redmond salt, and the Fur Trail Poultry NutriBalancer. Those are our mineral mixes for the cows, and that's free choice. They get as much as they want anytime they want it, and sometimes they go a week and don't touch it. Other times you think they're going to bankrupt you, and so we let the animals choose how much of that they're going to eat. There's no sweeteners, there's no molasses, there's no beet pulp or anything. It's just straight minerals. And fortunately, animals don't watch television, so they're not swayed by what somebody else thinks they ought to have. Mm-hmm. They actually know what they need to have. They're smart enough to know what they need to have, and so we let them make that free choice.
Thank you. Well, this question actually is pretty similar. We're not going to shift gears too much. Where should we look to source our feed for cows, pigs, and chickens?
Well, cows don't need any feed, so you don't need to look anywhere to source that. Cows are herbivores, and they shouldn't be eating grain, including sheep and goats and that sort of thing. That maybe is another discussion for another time, but you don't need to source any feed for cows. Now, for chickens and pigs and things like that, ideally you want a source of GMO free. And so there again, you're just going to have to look around in your area, start asking questions. If there's a sustainable ag or regenerative ag or some sort of almost every state has some sort of a sustainable ag organization. I mean, the Carolina Farm Stewardship Association, Ohio Ecological Food and Farming Association. In the Northeast, it's the Northeast Organic NOFA, North Organic Food Farm Association. Pennsylvania Association of Sustainable Agriculture. Virginia Association for Biological Farming. The point is that the Texas Organic Growers, TOG. Almost every state has a non-chemical, the other tribe, and so get involved with that. Start asking around, and I mean, again, Justin said community. I couldn't agree more. You need to get out, get active. Don't do this on your own. I mean, for me, all except for my dad, who was my greatest mentor, but other than he, all of my greatest first mentors came out of our Virginia Association for Biological Farming when it started back, 40 years ago, 45, 50 years ago. And man, that was my community. And those people also have information about, how to treat sick things, how to treat diseases and fungus in your, tomatoes or whatever. So you're looking to build that tribe, and so your feed sources. look for who's doing GMO free, and look, final caveat thing, if you can't find anything that works, if you can't find anything that works except conventional, don't refuse to start because you can't find something unconventional. Go ahead with the conventional, start, keep looking, and eventually you'll find an alternative. But if you wait until perfection to start, you'll never start because you'll never find perfection. So go ahead and start imperfect and you'll be fine.
Is it you who said good enough is perfect?
Yeah, good enough is perfect.
Was that you who said that?
Yes.
Okay. Similar vein. Well, then, do you vaccinate your cattle and pigs? If they get sick, do you use antibiotics? And if not, what do you do?
All right. You see that bookshelf behind me? That bookshelf is full of textbooks, animal husbandry books, livestock books. One of my hobbies is collecting pre-1950 livestock books, and so there are a lot of remedies that aren't just medication. So to answer the question, first of all, no, we do not vaccinate. We don't vaccinate anything. Now, have we ever vaccinated? Yes, I'll tell you a story. So one year we rented a new farm, and we took about 80 stocker calves over there. They were 500-600 pounds. Took them over there, and they were there about 2 weeks, and we lost one. Oh, that's kind of weird. The next day I went over, we lost another one. Well, man, it's one thing to lose a chicken. It's quite another to lose a 600-pound calf. And what's going on here? The next day, we lost two. Well, man, I called the vet. I said, I don't know what's going on here, but we can't stand this very much. And they died fast. It wasn't like they were sick. Everything looked fine one day. Go to move them the next day, and there's a dead one. And vet came, sliced open the leg muscle there, and said black leg, and the muscles look, the meat looks real black. It's got black streaks in it. Black leg. Well, farmers typically vaccinate for black leg. Well, we never, we didn't, and so I said, well, what do we do? He said, well, you better vaccinate. Well, if I'm losing a calf or two a day worth $800. I'm going to vaccinate. So we got them all in. We vaccinated everybody, but I didn't like that remedy. So I came home and started looking at all my books on the shelf, and I looked through all the beef, all the cattle, the cow books, and at the problems, the black leg, and all of them were, it's ubiquitous in the soil. You have to vaccinate. There's no other thing you can do. Blah 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 blah. I was really discouraged. And I had one more book, like a pre-1930s, livestock book, and I'm reading through blackleg there, and the last sentence of the last book on my shelf said, blackleg is caused by anaerobic wounds. How the protozoa gets in there through anaerobic means, generally from puncture wounds due to brambles. Well, this farm that we moved them on, first time, it was a new lease, a new rental farm. It was full of blackberry bushes, massive big blackberry bushes. And so we were moving the mineral box around in these big blackberry patches so the cows would tromp them out. We were turning those calves into pin cushions. And we got blackleg. So I went to the landlord and I said, would it be okay if we bush hogged those? He said, fine. So we mowed them, and we never had another one. I could go on all night with those kind of stories, but the fact is that every single health issue that we've ever had has always been my fault. It's always been my fault. And it's always a management, a sanitation, hygiene, it could be even that I selected the wrong breeding stock, that I got weak breeding stock. But the point is, it's always my fault. And so so just be encouraged, be encouraged that crutches, yes, you can use crutches, but never use crutches long term. Crutches should be something very short term, and then and what you're doing is you're looking at your management, you're looking at your sanitation, you're looking at your genetics. I mean, Kit Pharaoh, who has like 4,000 cows, never pulls a calf, and he sells bull. He's one of the biggest alternative seed stock producers in the country, all grass based, and he sells, I don't know what, 1,500 bulls a year. It's unbelievable, and he guarantees that any bull you buy from him is something like 10 generations never pulled a calf, no assisted births for 10 generations back of every bull. Somebody asked him one time, he said, well, assisting births.
Hey, Joel, I'm sorry to interrupt you. You cut it out there. Can you go back to the bull?
So somebody asked him,
yeah.
Well, Kit, how do you do that, without doing any assisted births? And he said, well, if you don't assist any, they either make it or they don't, and pretty soon you don't have to assist any. It sounds cruel, but that's actually the way to move your genetic base forward, so that you don't have sick-prone animals. And this is a big problem with homesteaders, because homesteaders, man, if I could get on a soapbox for a minute, homesteaders routinely buy something because they're cute, because they're saving something that somebody doesn't want, and we can save that animal, whatever. And homesteaders are suckers. They're suckers for cute little exotic, wimpy little dwarfs. And
good.
And
Keep on going. Get on that soapbox.
And they routinely then set themselves up for all sorts of health and veterinary issues, because they didn't spring for some really good stock at the beginning, and let their cutesy little heart overrule their business, their reason.
Yeah. That's a good point about homesteaders, and maybe that's what's going on with goats. I like to call them devil eyes. Goats are probably one of the most personality-based animals, but there can be a lot of problems raising a goat on a homestead. But we won't get me sidetracked. You won't get me on my goat soapbox. I want to say that this though,
which here comes
people are keeping them for pets, but this is also a trick too, because when we got back from the farm tour, we just hit the ground running, got some sheep where we could, and we were like you, Joel. We don't want to vaccinate. We don't want to do antibiotics because we're going to eat that meat. Well, when you only have 5 sheep and you lose 4 of the 5, I mean, that's bad. I mean, if you lose 4 or 5 out of 100, that's a different story. We never did. Right. We never did. I mean, we were that hardcore. We never did do a chemical vaccination. We did treat them early. I think it was too late. I don't think chemical or herbs would have helped. But I guess that's one thing.
Cute animals.
So then, but I can speak to this, like, this dog. Why did he get so excited? The dog's gotten excited.
He heard about Joel saying about the cute dwarf animal.
Oh, he liked it. Speaking of cute dwarf animals, if you need a cute dwarf animal, get you a dog. Get you a little house dog, not a goat. But anyway, it's hard. It's hard too. Yeah, there's the pet aspect. That's huge. And people are vaccinating these things and then breeding those things. It's one thing to save an animal, I think, but don't hold that one to breed if it's not going to, you don't want that offspring. But it is hard too, because on a homestead, if you only have 5 sheep, that can be difficult. So I think it's important. We got those sheep right away, just locally, but then we got on the wait list. And we got on a wait list of a similar method. It was Greg Judy, because we knew Greg didn't vaccinate. He didn't baby any sheep. If they got out, he took them to the market. So these are very calm. But we had to wait a year and a half. And we're just now, and then, go ahead.
And Justin, remember, Greg Judy went through, 5-6 years of 50% mortality.
Wow.
While they weeded themselves out, while they called themselves out. So I mean, again, you can't shortcut these things. It takes time.
That's a good word. And I didn't know he went through that 50% mentality. I knew that we should, as homesteaders, appreciate that and seek that out. Even though I had to drive, I had to get on a year-long waiting list, and then I had to drive 16 hours one way.
Yeah.
And then back. Yeah. But now we have these sheep.
They're amazing.
That are hardy as all get out. The Premier One fence will fall down, won't be on, and they don't get out. And it's thanks to his, what you're saying, going through the 50% mortality. He told me a story where 40 sheep broke out, and he still had a town job at the time. Well, the neighbor called him. He came home, rounded up into the corral, and took him to the market right then. It's hardcore, but
yeah,
I'm now benefiting from those years that he put in, and so it's worth the extra money. It's worth the wait.
Yeah.
So that's good. This is good. I like this. This is my soapbox too. Okay. Insurance. What do I need? Do I need insurance for selling meat, eggs, and garden produce?
I would not get insurance until insurance keeps you from being able to develop a market. So as long as a buyer does not ask for insurance, don't get it. Your chances of being sued are in direct relationship to the amount of insurance you have. So if you don't have any insurance, there's nothing to sue for. So we did not carry any product liability insurance until the local farmers market, wanted us to carry, I don't know what it was, $50,000 or something, and we got it on as a rider. It was very cheap. It was $100 a year, and now we carry a lot more insurance because we're in markets, we're in institutional markets that demand more insurance. But if your buyer, your customers are not asking for insurance, I wouldn't get it.
I think the next question, it's similar. I think it's going to be I think your answer is going to be similar as well. What permits, license, business structure should I be looking to before I start?
Don't look for trouble. It's easier to ask forgiveness than permission.
How'd I know this was coming?
Right, I knew that.
So I'll make my recommendation here. To join the Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund. The Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund has real-time 24/7 access to give you that kind of counsel. And generally, if you don't know what permits you need, you're not ready to get one. If you don't know more than a bureaucrat, you're not ready to talk to a bureaucrat.
That's a good word.
Because bureaucrats generally they will stonewall you. They want to say no. They will lie to you. I mean, lie a lot. And so if you don't know more than that, if you don't know the rules better than a bureaucrat does, you're not ready to go into business. And so yeah, there are things you need a license for, but if you're starting small, kind of non-splashy, non-public, under the radar, friends and neighbors and acquaintances, things like that, you don't. I mean, depending on what you do. I mean, if you're selling whatever bologna. You want to be a little careful about that. That's highly, highly regulated. Or if you're smoking, you're selling smoked hot dogs, That's a very, very highly regulated product.
Yeah, if you're using the
But man, if you're,
kitchen.
if you're,
Oh,
but it,
somebody asked about cabbage
yeah,
laws.
but if you're, if you're just doing some, whole foods, goodness, even I would even say if you're butchering a couple pigs and you have some friends that want to buy some sausage, I'd sell it to them in a heartbeat. I wouldn't ask anything, and I'd tell them, look, don't go tell your if you have a friend that works for the Food Safety Inspection Service, don't go brag to him about buying some backyard sausage. Just keep keep that to yourself. But but on a small scale, starting out for little prototypes, um, I, I I wouldn't worry about it. Look, here's the thing: they're not going to come and put you in jail. That's the where everybody's scared. They're going to come put me in. No, they're not going to put you in jail. Well, the worst that'll happen is you'll get a letter that's a little bit threatening that says to cease and desist. That's what'll happen. That's the worst thing that'll happen.
Yeah.
Well, then you make your decision, and you go from there. But nobody's going to give you a fine. Nobody's going to throw you in jail at the outset. They're just going to come on they're just going to come hunting, and you can decide how friendly you want to be.
Yeah. I think that people too don't understand. Like early on when we were starting an online business, we called the county or whoever thinking we had to get a business license. Nobody knew anything. We finally, somebody said, well, are you outside the city limits? Yeah, okay, you don't even need so there wasn't even like a need for a permit, license, or anything like that, and you're still perfectly legal. And somebody's asking in here, what about LLC? Like, I think people get caught up in, I got to be a LLC or whatever. I feel like you got to get caught up in making sure this is going to work first. And you can always, I'm not saying cheat on taxes. I'm saying report it, be a sole proprietorship.
Yeah.
It's that easy. You do the accountant or do your own work. You're keeping your own books. I'm not saying cheat on taxes. I'm saying pay your taxes. You can be under sole proprietorship just with your social security number. And then, and I'm speaking this from all the different various businesses we've had. We didn't LLC until we've had this one and had, phenomenal success and knew it was our life calling. The other one's just simple sole proprietorship.
Right. I would absolutely concur with that. Yeah. I mean, it might be funny for you, Justin, to realize that our county. Did you know that it's illegal for me to write books in my house?
So how do you?
Because we're in an agricultural zone.
Mm.
Okay.
In an agricultural zone, it's illegal to do a writing vocation.
Wow. So how do you get around that?
He rides him on the airplane.
You ride on the airplane?
No. I just don't tell them. That's one of the beauties of being incorporated. One of the beauties of being incorporated is that it all gets buried in the in the business, and all these little specifics aren't out there for everybody to see.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. How do you now you? Maybe it's not the best question for you because you are not shy. So how would you advise somebody who is shy to overcome that? And you were talking about giving away 40 of your chickens as your marketing plan. How do you help somebody who's shy and just scared to death of rejection? Because it's huge. It's hard. It's hard to call on a sale, especially like in a one-on-one situation, especially maybe if they're your friends and family. You got any tips on overcoming that social struggle in marketing?
Yeah, get a partner. get an extroverted partner. I'm serious. Sherry and I do a 2-day marketing school for Stockman Grass Farmer, and we deal with this issue because many of the people who come to the marketing school, they know they've got a market because nothing happens until you sell something, but they're petrified of making a cold call or, you're right, rejection. People are petrified of sounding greedy. You mean I'm going to tell people I have the best tomatoes? Well, what right have I to tell people I have the best tomatoes? That sounds proud and arrogant, and farmers are supposed to be humble and peasant, downtrodden, you know, hillbilly types. And we're not supposed to tell people we have the best tomatoes. That's what those slick, TV advertisers do. And I don't want to be one of there's all sorts of this stuff around. So what you do is you get a child, a niece, a nephew, a friend, an acquaintance to be your marketer on commission. Put them on commission, and everything they sell, they get a certain percentage of it. And okay, so you don't get the whole thing, but you don't have to do it either. And so sharing, the thing is, if you hook up, I mean, what a perfect example of what we've just done with Polyface Designs. Look, we could only reach so far at Polyface. We could only reach out there to a certain clientele. But we hooked up with you, put you on a commission. Now you're incentivized to sell. We leverage your expertise, and suddenly we sell 3 times as much. Well, okay, so we're giving up the we're yeah.
Joel, you cut.
We're giving, yeah, I know it clicked off.
Okay.
We're giving up a commission, but the aggregate is still way more than we ever would have been just going by ourselves. And so we have three marketers, all women, because all of our customers are women. Men don't do anything but open the refrigerator door, grunt, and say, "I can't find it." So all of our customers are women, and we have 3 marketers that do the marketing, and they're all on commission. And I hope they make $1 million.
Yeah. Because then you're making too, and so it's like the more they make,
right.
The more you make.
That's right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Rebecca, were you pointing Rebecca to a question?
Yeah, someone just had a question about the book, and they wanted to know a schedule of some sort explaining how long each structure should be on a specific area of land and how often it can repeat. Is that in the videos? Wow.
I don't know if you speak that. I don't know if you speak about that in the book, do you, Joel? Like how much? Like I know from experience being up there with you last time, you don't, with the poultry pens, you don't repeat you give the land a rest for a year. The chickens are only on it one day for a year.
Right.
That's
for the broilers.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now the for the layers, it's one time a year too. But they pass through like the Millennium Feather Net. It's not on exactly the same spot. It might be one spot removed, but it can go. The layers can go over the same ground 3 times in a year with the Millennium Feather Net, but the actual structure is not on the same square footage each time.
Okay. Yeah.
It moves around because the circles aren't exact. The circles kind of vary, and you kind of vary them around. And so I would just say the rule of thumb is if you have hurt the sod to where the sod won't come back, they've been on there too long.
Okay.
Generally, you're looking at a day or two, obviously depending on density, but yeah, if you're making dirt, if you're destroying the sod, that's not good.
Speaking of
you don't want to see dirt.
Speaking of rule of thumb, how many acres per cow could you suggest to people, perhaps, if they're east of the Mississippi where it rains?
Yeah, east of the Mississippi, here in our county, the average is 4 acres per cow. Here at Polyface, we average 0.9 acres per cow.
Wow.
So yeah, that has to do with fertility.
So can people find that out? They can call their county extension and find out the cow days per acre?
The extension agent won't be able to discuss that, but what they can ask is, I have 10 acres, how many cows can I run on it? That's what the extension agent will be able to tell them. But the extension agent, if you say cow days, he'll look at you like you're from Pluto.
All right, so say, hey, I'm about to buy 5 acres.
Yeah.
How many cows do you reckon I could put on that? And that'd
right.
probably be a pretty good place to start, right? Because it's most likely going to be run down.
Yes, that's correct.
They're not going to be buying
correct.
Polyface where you've been rotationally grazing, resting.
No, and we don't get that on our rental farms either.
No.
Yeah, we don't get that on our rental farms.
So if somebody just bought 15 acres, this could be 5 or 10 acres, that doesn't matter, 15, 20, 100. What are the top 3 animals that you would start rotationally grazing to regenerate the land? And how many would you start with each animal? I feel like you'd already start with maybe what the county suggested in that area. But what animals?
Well, nothing builds soil and fertility faster than pastured broilers, because it's very intensive, and you're laying on a tremendous amount of nutrient value, and it's a very fast turnaround, and it takes less infrastructure. You don't need a tractor. You don't even need a corral. I mean, you can do it with a $100 trailer and almost a wheelbarrow, to start. So, I mean, I'm still a fan of the broiler, the meat chicken, because it's an 8-week turn. I mean, it's as fast as a radish almost. It's a fast turnaround, and it gives you the greatest kick from a fertility standpoint. So that would be number one. Number 2 would be layers. They're not gonna be quite as intensive, but they're still gonna add a tremendous amount of fertility. And eggs. The beauty of eggs is they're easy to sell. We call them our gateway product. Everybody buys eggs, and they don't buy half an egg. They buy a whole egg. You don't have necks and backs and drumsticks left over. They take the whole egg. So you're not selling parts and pieces, which is great from an inventory balancing standpoint. And then the third one, I mean, for me, is I like the cow, and the reason I like the cow, or a bovine. I don't want to people that understand nomenclature. When I say cow, be a steer, a bovine. The reason I like the bovine is because fencing is so simple. Now, if you don't want something big like a bovine, you want a sheep or a goat, then I would move toward the sheep before the goat. But again, how many people do you know who eat lamb? How many people do you know who eat goat? Do you eat lamb? Do you eat goat? The fact is, the per capita consumption of lamb in America is 0.7 pounds per year. 0.7 pounds per year. Beef, it's about 60 pounds per year. And goat is probably 0.3 pounds per year. So the point is that it doesn't take very many sheep or goats to saturate a local market. Those are very ethnic markets. Now, if you live on the outskirts of a great big city that has a lot of ethnicity to it, Middle Easterners, mainly Middle Easterners. I'll just leave it as Middle Easterners. That's the lamb and goat ethnic market, and that's fantastic if you live next to near one of those. But if you don't, I can tell you're going to saturate the lamb and goat market locally real quick, because almost nobody eats it, whereas everybody eats beef. And one of the beauties of beef is they're so easy to keep in. One strand of one strand of electric fence, one strand, and those cows are good to go. Sheep and goats won't respect one strand, so you're going to have a lot more fencing, figuring around to keep sheep and goats. So I like the cows for the simplicity of the fencing as a starter herbivore. They're a lot more simple to keep from a fencing standpoint.
Let's go with the Cornish cross here. So somebody's starting out. I imagine you would probably, if somebody's really wanting to just get started, you're probably not going to take the time to have the cows go and stomp that bramble down enough so you can get a poultry pen. tell me if I'm not right. You would probably just borrow a tractor, rent a tractor, and just brush hog that place,
I sure would. Yes.
and then
Yes.
just get
Get it.
those.
Yeah.
And just to speak to everyone, you don't even have to have a blade of grass on it either to run Cornish cross in your pen, would you? That's not like a big
No.
part of their diet, so that
No. No, it's
okay.
not. If you've got some if you got some sparse weeds out there, they'll do just fine.
Yeah. So what does it cost? You might not know this off. This is maybe the only question you might know off the top of your head. So we talked in the tour video that went up on YouTube. We talked about numbers, sale numbers in a poultry pen, 75-ish birds, 75 to 100 birds. What does it cost to feed 75 to 100 birds? And then for those who didn't see that show, what do you think you can sell 75 or 100, or what should you be able to sell 100 birds for?
Okay, so so can we talk about one bird?
Yeah, do one bird. That's even better.
All right. These Cornish cross will eat roughly 14 pounds of feed in their 8 weeks. 14 pounds of feed in their 8 weeks, and they will at 8 weeks they will dress out at on average at least 4.5 pounds of carcass weight. Okay, so if they dress out 4.5 pounds of carcass weight, obviously if you sell them, get the calculator up here. If you sell them for $4 a pound, that's $18 a bird. If you sell them for $3.50, that's $15.75 a bird. All right, so you can just go down the list. 14 pounds of feed. If you're getting just conventional feed, that's probably going to cost you, I don't know, 22 cents a pound. 22 cents a pound. That's 308 in feed costs. Our feed right now, local GMO free, is running right at about 28 cents. So our feed cost is $3.92. Okay. If you get certified organic by the bag, it's going to run you probably 55 cents a pound. So now you've got 14 pounds times 55 is $7.70 per bird in feed cost. I can't hear you.
Okay, there we are. We're back. So organic, it's going to be $14 in cost. So what is a general rule of thumb? People want to double their money on the feed cost, or what? They're first starting out. They don't know what they need to charge to make this worth it.
Yeah. I would say in general, whatever your feed costs are, you need to triple, multiply that.
Okay.
Multiply that by about at least three, perhaps maybe even 4 times, somewhere between 3 and 4 times, to make it work. Yes.
Yes, because then out of that margin, you've got to you got to keep your infrastructure up. You got to pay yourself for your time, your travel to the market, your marketing, all that stuff.
Right.
So it's not like you're bringing all that in. You still have other expenses besides feeds. So
Oh no.
What breeds of chickens, cows, and pigs should people use?
Oh me. So we're not breed specific here. We are far more interested in phenotype, and so you're looking for bovine, for cows. You're looking for something that looks like a barrel on toothpicks. And most cows in the industry are way big. Ideally your mature cow shouldn't weigh over 1,100 pounds. Even 1,000 pounds is just fine. That's going to be hard to find because most people have 14, 15, 1,600 pound cows. So the bigger you get, the less efficient they are on grass. And the reason they've gotten so big in the industry is because the processing industry wants a bigger carcass for fabrication reasons. If you're going to set up a meat grinder or a meat saw, the bigger the carcass, you can turn out a lot more pounds if they're Duplos and if they're Legos. So the bigger the pieces, the bigger the parts, the more efficient the pounds of fabrication. So that's why the industry has moved to the great big animal. But that's the worst thing for efficiency on grass. On pigs, what we're looking for is a torpedo phenotype. So if you go to the county fair and look at the pigs at the market animal show, you don't want any of those pigs that we call them Arnold Schwarzenegger piggies. They've got real big obtuse rear ends. They look square like a box, and they walk arthritically. And so that's. Did you like the Arnold Schwarzenegger piggy thing? Okay, so those are not the kind of pigs you want. You want a torpedo phenotype. It's rounded off in the front, rounded off in the rear, and they're nice and flat from the hindquarters through the belly up to the front quarters. It's just a more functional phenotype that'll work in an outdoor situation. So what we have found is, here's the bottom line for us: there's more difference within breeds than there is from breed to breed. So you take any breed, Yorkshire, Duroc, Red Wattle, whatever it is, Berkshire, you can take any breed and you can find animals that will work and animals that won't. And so rather than being breed specific, that's why I'm saying what you want to be is functionally literate, so this kind of animal will perform for me. And a lot of times, it takes a while to work through that. So, one of my suggestions for people that are just getting in is to go to some neighbors or something, and don't worry about this exotic genetics. Just get something that's basic, and that way, if they don't work for you, the salvage price, they'll pay for themselves on salvage price. If you go out and you get a rare breed for 3 times above market price because it's a specialty, if that animal doesn't breed or doesn't work for you, you're going to lose $2 out of 3. You bought that animal for $2,000 and you might only get $800 for it in salvage. But if you only buy an animal for $800, you can still get $800 for salvage. You haven't lost your shirt.
Hey, speaking of shirts, I got to jump on this. This is a popular question going in the chat right now. What name is on Joel's shirt tonight?
It's Jerry.
Who's Jerry? I don't know if everybody knows why you have these different names on your shirt.
Because I'm cheap.
Where are you finding these shirts?
We go down to the uniform cleaners in Stanton. There's an outfit that cleans uniform, and I don't know whether Jerry got fired or retired or died at his place, but Jerry is no more. And so when people leave the business, then these guys they bundle them up in little triplicates. And we go there and buy them for like a buck a shirt, and really, really cheap.
I bet when people have, go ahead.
We've actually had visitors at the farm.
Yeah.
That come, and I'm out, doing something, and I say, I walk by, I say hi, and they look there, they say, "Hi, Jerry." And I say, hi. And they say, do you work here? And I say, yeah, I work here. And they say, well, when you see him, could you tell Joel he's got a neat farm? I said, yeah, I'll tell you when I see him. And I just walk on off. It's hilarious.
Yeah, you still get that, huh?
Oh yeah, funny.
That's an easy errand for you, isn't it? Yeah, I'll tell him. Especially if they got a complaint. Hey, I want to find Joe. I got a complaint.
Yeah. I'll go look for him.
I'll let him know. I'll send him your way.
If it's the bureaucrats, they come looking for Joel. Everybody's named Jerry. Or there's no Joel. Okay. Well, that's a good happy ending right here. We're gonna ask one more question. We're gonna leave it on a good note here. But somebody did ask. We're gonna ask one more question. It's kind of a visionary question. But then let's do a little housekeeping too. We'll talk about second printing of this book. You know, when people are gonna get their stuff. So, but first, what is the vision for your future?
Yeah. So my vision is, as we've done soul searching here, we actually went through a process a couple of years ago of really defining the soul of Polyface. What is it? What is it that we what is it that floats our boat? What gets us up in the morning? What really excites us? And interestingly, our consensus was what we really enjoy doing is healing land. We know that when we touch the land, it blossoms. And we've done it here at our place. We've done it now on 15 rental places. We know that when we touch the land, it just blossoms. And so my vision is that we want to continue touching more land. That doesn't mean we want to grow an empire. It does mean that we still really enjoy. In fact, we spent yesterday looking at a new place that's come up in the community that we've got. Maybe a guy that wants to buy it and us manage it and rent it. And man, it's always exciting to get onto a new place and imagine, well, we can put a pond there, put a lane in here. We can, this will be trees, this will be pasture, and just we really and you know what? Now we're really good at it. I mean, we're really good at it. So we can go onto a place and design a functional livestock landscape and not make very many mistakes. Yeah. So we have a real high confidence level, and it's really enjoyable to us. So what that means, though, if we're going to do that, we obviously have to sell it. So now you have to have marketing. My dream is to touch more land, but to bring all of it in balance. The marketing has to be in balance with the land base, and the personnel has to be in balance with the marketing and the land base, more of the same. And of course, for me personally, I've got eight more book titles rattling around in my head, and so I'm hoping that I can continue to crank out enjoyable material to inspire, encourage, and challenge and touch people to embrace this visceral participatory embrace and caress of our ecological umbilical.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good goal. Thank you so much. For those that are wondering, hey, when am I getting my book, or what's up with the second printing? So I know some things, but let's just hear it from you, and let's just see. We'll go from there.
Sure. So people have to understand that this book, and for those who haven't gotten it, this is a monumental book. I mean, it weighs 5 pounds. It's 568 pages. It's 4 color. I mean, it could be I guess Rebecca, your kids have seen it.
Yeah.
And what we're hearing is that children love to look at it. They're mesmerized by it. It's like Legos.
We already have 2 ripped pages.
And so it's a So it's a monumental work, and so the point is it was very, very expensive to print. It cost $10, almost $11 a book just to get it printed. So that's where we had to put a cover price on it that would handle that huge printing cost. And then it cost $3 to ship the thing. It's so heavy, it's like shipping a kid. So it's expensive to ship, expensive to print, and so with all that said, we only printed 5,000, and I was scared to death. If you talk to my team, I mean, I got ulcers over this because we had about $65,000 out on just capitalizing the printing, the design work, and the basic, just to get it in hand.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of money to have out there on the table. And so remember, I get dollar shirts, with Jerry on them. So what we found was when we got the bids on the printing, that 5,000 was a sweet spot. It was enough to get the printing cost per book down low enough that we could swallow it, but not so high that we just felt like it was exorbitant. And my dream was to sell 1,000 by the end of the year, and it would get a lot of our capital back. But I didn't know the power of Justin Rhodes. And I also I
Oh, he's out. I'm trying. Where did we get our greenhouses? Where did we get our high tones?
I also completely missed just the interest in this. I had no idea that there would be this level of interest in the book. And so the bottom line is we've blown through the first 5,000, and we're in reprint right now. I'm sending a check for 30,000 up there tomorrow to get into you. But the problem is they've been extremely busy, and this is always right before Christmas is always when printers get real busy anyway. If this had been in January, we could have gotten the reprint back in a month. That's more customary. But this time we're not going to get the second print back until December the 18th. Probably be December the 20th. So we're right there at Christmas. It's a bummer. So everybody just has to be patient. But somewhere right there at Christmas week, we'll be able to get them all out, the second bunch, and get them all out.
Yeah, and you're doing the best you can. I don't think anybody saw this coming. It went viral in a sense and just went off the chain.
Yeah.
I could totally see why it did now, because it's such a wonderful book, such a wonderful work, decades in coming. It's 50 years overnight success story. That's the 50-year overnight success story, really.
Right.
And people have been reading your books, and these are the things of your books, and I think, for the most, these are wonderful people. I think them, especially in a vlog this week, we've been promoting it, and these are wonderful, patient people that stand by you and I, Joel, thick or thin.
Yeah.
They've seen us in our ups and downs, no matter what's going on. They stand by us. They know we're real people. We're sharing our lives. We're pouring our hearts out to them. And in many ways, they just also want to support us, and so they understand. We're just doing our best to get it out there as soon as possible. They're going to get it. They've done business with me before. They've done business with you before.
Right.
They're going to get it. They might have to come up with a creative card to hand a loved one if they're getting it for them for Christmas if it doesn't get there on time. But
right.
I think they get it. So we are blessed with a wonderful community that stands by us, and
we sure are. We sure are.
And somebody was like, the second printing, you're going to sign those books too, correct? Somebody wanted to make sure.
Put him on the
spot
here,
wanted
Becky.
to make sure.
768 people watching right now. No, Joe. Go sign.
And let me tell you, my hand has actually gotten sore. I mean, I have signed whatever thousands, and I've got a couple more thousand to go.
Yeah.
But I'm committed to sign them through the sales that we get through December 31.
Yeah.
I'm committed to sign those. But once they go on Amazon, I ain't signing any.
That's right.
You're done.
That's right. Yeah.
So I will tell you that we are printing our next, we are printing another 5,000.
Yeah.
Of which probably already 2,000 are sold.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
So,
Oh yeah.
So if
crazy.
if things develop, they gave me a bid for 7,500 as well, and so if things really go off the charts, I can always up it to 7,500. Because they're not going to get to it until the first.
Yeah, they're not printing yet.
We have a month. We have a month to wiggle. If we actually sell even more, I can always tell them, just keep your finger on that press button another 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I will say this: when Justin said, Joel said he's gonna sign 1,000
Yeah,
copies.
that was funny. I was scared to ask you that, but
I said, "Are you sure that he knows what this entails?" Because I've seen
so
people have talked about signing lots of books, and they talk about their hand hurting.
yeah, you're a good sport,
Yeah.
Joel. To sign those books, to get on a webinar with people, you could be writing, you could be hanging out with Teresa. So we really appreciate you for your time and doing that for the customer. It just shows how much you love them and appreciate them.
Yes.
And want to get the word out.
It's my pleasure. As you know, when people ask me, what's the key to success, I say the key to success is knowing who to hitch your wagon to.
Oh.
And so I've just and brought to tears at being able to hook my wagon to yours and be able to synergize what we've been able to do. I'm very appreciative.
Yes, thank you, and we're very appreciative of what you've done for our community and the homestead and our family, and it means a lot. So this is a good thing.
Good.
So
wonderful.
All right, Jerry, we'll let you go. I'm sure we'll see you again. Get those hands some rest. Get signing those books.
Yeah.
We still got them coming in.
That's great. Thank you, Justin
All
and
right.
Rebecca. It's wonderful
Thank
to see you.
you.
Yes. All right. Good night.
Bye.
Good night.